Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of Cracked Rugby with your host, Tom O'Mahony, in association, of course, with Buckshot Podcast. Welcome, anybody new to the situation. Fantastic to have you. Anybody jumping over from Buckshot or the Tom and Jerry Show or Hard Enough Podcast, you're also very welcome. This will be a podcast purely based on rugby. Now, I know we're in the preseason and everything else, but this is kind of a preseason one. We're going to have guests and whatnot throughout the normal season when everything else kicks off from next week onwards, really. But this is just a bit of an intro, bit of a hello. Have a look back throughout the preseason games that have happened. We are, of course, an Irish podcast, and we'll be covering the home provinces and whatnot, but with a smattering of the old internationals and whatnot, because you can't not. You can't not, you know what I mean? And, of course, bits and pieces from the old Premiership, if and when they are needed. Of course, there will be a few bits from Europe. I'm covering almost everything bar Super Rugby, essentially. And let's be honest, with the new URC, we've half of them now as well. So I think we'll be all right. I think we'll be okay. A bit of intro to myself. I'm a stand-up comedian and podcaster. Like I mentioned, three podcasts that I've been involved with. Currently still involved with Buckshot Podcast, my own one, and the Tom and Jerry Show. The Buckshot, as you may or may not have realized, I have quite a penchant for rugby. I've had a lot of rugby players on the podcast, normally lighthearted, good crack stuff. But for the most part, it's my interest in it. Played a bit of rugby back in my day. It's such a line, isn't it? It's such a line. Played a bit of rugby back in the day myself. I did. I don't know what other way to say it. You know, was I good enough? No, I was all right. I was okay. I was, we won some stuff. I was the school's captain, but that's about it. That's about it. It was an old school from Tipperary, but I still have a bit of a penchant for it and whatnot. And it's always nice to talk to experts, but I'm here as a lighthearted version because the reality is that they seem to be very very fact-driven. Not, which I suppose is something you probably should do when it comes to sports, but we'll be having a bit of a lighter look at it because I don't really know any other way to do it. But we will, of course, be genuinely dropping in tidbits of actual rugby footage and stuff that has happened throughout the week and possibly coming up and things like that. So without further ado, I suppose we may as well jump into it, will we? For me, the big one that jumped up this week is Dwayne Vermeulen. It was only announced just this morning as I record, because I'm recording on Thursday just to put it out tomorrow for Friday. As you will listen to this, it'll be Friday the 17th. And we'll be typically coming out on Tuesdays from then on, but this is just a hello. But Dwayne Vermeulen, for me, what an absolute acquisition. How many spuds are they offering that man? I can't find any article that says how much. They're just going, isn't it great? Isn't it great that Dwayne decided to go to Belfast? Leave nice, warm South Africa to go to Belfast. I mean, I like Belfast. Don't get me wrong. I gig there a lot. But we play indoors, in nice, warm, dry environments. I can only imagine. How much do you reckon? It's got to be 500. I mean, I know they're not on mega bucks down in South Africa, or even the Southern Hemisphere. It's not mega bucks, but I mean, he could have gone to France. Handy could have gone to any French club, and I guarantee you they were really looking for him. How much? It's got to be a half. Got to be a half anyway, hasn't it? I mean, he's the marquee signing. Wow, Dwayne Vermeulen. But they like the odd. I mean, Munster is nearly a breeding ground for a lot of the old South African lads, but at the same time, Ulster have always had a little, dip their toe in this, Saffers pool or whatnot. But Dwayne Vermeulen, man, what an acquisition! Well done, Ulster. I would love to know. I'm going to put the feelers out. A couple of lads I know that are friendly with a couple of guys that are still playing, and that I have to find out how much, because they won't say. Rugby is so behind. They never fully say. They'll say the odd time when they go to France, because or Japan. Because you'd be guaranteed any of the Japanese lads, there's no end to how much money they have. It's just, the rugby is kind of pish and whatnot, but it is, let's be honest, it's a bit of crack. And then you go to America then when you're absolutely wrote off, but you can still put a few arses in seats. But Ulster, I mean, they lost Coetzee or whatever. What age? I mean, Dwayne Vermeulen, he's not that old. I mean, listen, when you play like he plays, you're going to look 50 even when you're 30, because he uses his feet where most fellas wouldn't put their fucking foot. It's, as the old phrase says, he's got a face like a blind carpenter's thumb, but a hard bastard, Brilliant. Well done. Well, you'd be always happy for Old Ulster, that kind of way. You have to be. They're a bit beige at times for one reason or another, but they've made some serious acquisitions. I'd say they could end up get to semi-finals of Europe. They could. I don't know what they kind of don't know what they are a small bit, Ulster, at the minute, and there's no reading into it. Although in fairness, I mean, they got their arse handed to them the week previous, but last week, played in the most English of environments I've ever seen, playing in London against Saracens the other day. It was like nice little marquees. We'll get into that in the chat about about the about the games and whatnot, but it was a very English affair. But the WRC have come out and said that they're considering a World Cup every 2 years. Effect off. No, we're not having it. No. I'm sorry. We are not having that. It's every 2 years. No, it can't be. It can't be. Jesus Christ Almighty! When there's everybody knows a World Cup, everything goes in cycles of four. It's just money. You see, all that is now is they've lost their stones, and on say the Lions and all the rest of it, and they're just going, what do we do? More World Cups. I mean, it completely dilutes the classiness of the World Cup, because you want to hang on to it for 4 years. No, I can't see. Every so often you wonder, do they come up with these, like celebrities do, like Nicki Minaj and Conor McGregor, they just come out with these ridiculous statements every so often just to get a bit of an attention, or they're drawing the attention away, because it's all very political. I wonder, is that the idea behind it? We'll just come out with a World Cup every year. No, 2 years. Let's do that. No. Leave it every 4 years. Christ above. I mean, because it completely dilutes what everybody likes about rugby. Of course, they have introduced a couple of new laws, latching, which I'll be honest with you, I did trying to read through it. I'll explain it further. And what I'll actually do is I'll get our expert next week to explain the new law on latching, especially, you know what I mean, the old pick and drive, right, at the pick and jam. I don't know why you'd want to jam into anybody. Do you know about to pick and drive? But they call it pick and jam a lot, other people. So we'll call it the pick and drive. You can't just root your head up some fella's hole from 20 seconds out and then give it a go. I think you have to let him have the first bang, and then you get in. You can root in then. I kind of think that's what it's about, but I'll ask our expert on Monday, and we'll see exactly. But I do understand the 50-22 rule. So essentially, if you booted from inside basically you get it from 22 to 22, you're away in a hack. There you go. You're away in a hack. That's all you. It's your throwing the line out then, which the idea of it being is that the absolute blanket, the brick wall defenses with nearly everybody in the line, where it's just Red Rover. It's just Red Rover, essentially, is all it's been for the last couple of seasons. It's trying to dissipate that a small bit, break it up, make sure they full back, stay back, maybe an owl wing or two, keep one owl eye roving in the backfield, because when you got lads with big boomers that kicks like, James Lowe, Rory Scannell, a couple of more lads who have absolute rockets of kicks. Ben Healy will be able to do it, no problem. These lads, John Cooney is probably able to do it. You got to stay sharp on these lads. So I'd imagine the likes of Simon Zebo, if he does make it back into the starting, there's a couple of lads that would have an argument there, whether it's Gallagher or Haley. I think it's going to make it more. That for me, I don't really give a shit about what's happening with the rooting around at the forwards thing. I get what it's about. It's obviously, just I don't know how much of a difference that one's going to make. The ones that's most exciting for me is the 50-22 rule, because if you can, it'll get lads to practice absolute bombs of kicks, and it might introduce players from, lads that mightn't have gotten a look in before. his or her one pressing thing is, look, I got a really big boot. That could open the door for people that mightn't have gotten the look in before, you know, that kind of way. Because I don't know how well you can develop it, how big you can get your quads or whatever, but people who may or may not have been absolutely a look issue in, you know, how big is Haley's boot? How big is how big is Matt Gallagher's boot? How big is Zebo's boot? You know, these lads, I know I just named 3 Munster people there. This won't be a Munster-based podcast, I promise. And if anybody has friends of Buckshot, you'll see I've had as many Leinster lads on now as I had Munster lads, in fairness, I think. But I will be keeping it unbiased as possible. As possible, if you know what I mean. But you know, when you be watching one, I'm just saying, I'll try and keep, this will actually be really good for me, because I'll actually try and keep a close eye on all the provinces. But I like the idea of the 50-22, because it'll break it up a bit. More tries, lads, essentially. That's the idea of what I'm saying. The Red Rover shit that's been going on the last couple of years, where it's just smashing into each other, leaving no space for anybody, any little jinky hip tours to slip through. You know, because this will open it up for the likes of Gary Ringrose and stuff like that, where there'll be a bit more of a gap. I like it. I think we're going to see more tries, which everybody wants to see more tries. That's why I can never understand soccer why they don't widen the goals. Give them 10 goals each. You know, I'm not here to slag off other sports. Declan Moore, along with another signing. I don't know how good, bad, or indifferent he is. He's a big old unit, but apparently he's Irish qualified. He's coming from the Melbourne Rebels. He's coming over he's a Kiwi, I think, by birth, but he is Irish qualified. With a name like Muir. Sure, I mean, say no more. Well, hey, that was ridiculous. I didn't mean to do that at all, but Declan Moore, anyway, he's coming over from the Melbourne Rebels. No harm. Wish I did see a bit of a mullet. I won't lie, given what's going on here. Anybody watching it on the video, because yes, the full video, if you're listening to this on audio, the full video is over on YouTube as well. If you look for Cracked Rugby, I like what they're doing down south. A few mullets, a couple of crazy haircuts, a couple of tasty moustaches. Let's be honest, a couple of quality mows. We're not at any of that here. You know, everybody's got the short back and sides down to barbers for €5. I'm not saying it's got to be stylish. You know, James Lowe is, you know, he's got that kind of mid-90s kind of. he's got that whole Nickelback thing going on there. He's a bit Nickelback, isn't he? I know he keeps it in a ponytail when he plays, but when it's down, it's absolutely Nickelback like. So, but at least he's got something going on. I know there's a couple of lads like the likes of, you know, Cooney keeps it ridiculously on point, but at the same time, it's a bit of flavor, you know. Favorite point of the weekend, because I'll go through the provinces and stuff like that. I'm gonna start introducing new bits throughout the season, just for the hell of it, to make it magazine style. But we will finish with always. I think we should finish with clatter of the week, and that's just the biggest absolute banging tackle from the week. But my favorite point of the week was the lads from Castres. They were playing Clermont, I believe, and it was Clermont that were playing at the weekend. Regardless of who they were playing, doesn't make a difference. Because the boys were coming up the road in the team bus, and I mean, they're professional men. They should be sitting there, you know, paid athletes, and somebody had left a Volkswagen Golf out in the road, which, you know, I was kind of surprised by the Golf driver, but then, you know, it's classic France. It's just like, must get some leave the Golf on the road. And these boys went, fuck that. Fuck that. They got out of the bus. We will not be late. Out of the bus, but big hooers. Picked up a Golf and threw it up in the footpath. Go have a look. Go have a look for it. It's there on, it's everywhere at the minute. It's one of the best things ever. It's just these brutes. Because you kind of go, you know, what's outside of rugby, what's your size for? Because, you know, poor old bastards, the size of them, you know, these lads 120 kgs and stuff like that. You get a couple of them hang on to the bumper of a Volkswagen Golf and just horse it up onto the footpath. I love it. Not a bother. And then went out and won the game. So they'd be talking about, conserving your energy and all the rest of these guys. Not a bother to them. Fired the car out of the way like something out of the fucking Avengers. Back on the bus and went out and won the game. How class is that? I love that. That's what you want to hear. I love that stuff. Brilliant. Good on your cast. So moving into the way the week, preseason, it's arguable because you can't really judge too much because lads are just throwing out everything and it's lads have a bit of timber on them. Because that's one thing I noticed. There was a bit of mating a few lads that wasn't there the last time we saw them. But at the same time, you do, by preseason standards, you have to chuck the calories into you because the pain you're going to be going through, like they'll be puking. There's going to be lads just pulling up because they haven't ran. They've done nothing. Some of them in 5 or 6 weeks, more even. So bit of mate on a few lads, but also the coaches don't want to give anything away. They want to see different combinations. It's got to be lads out there that mightn't see a kick of a ball for another 3 months. It's just the way of it. So you can't read a whole pile into it. And I watched the Munster match, all right. And I caught the highlights. I've watched nearly all of the other ones too, because thankfully for YouTube, it's all up there. And it's great. I can actually treat it as work. I'm like, well, it's work. It's for the podcast. I'm just sitting here. I don't feel guilty that I'm not, tending to things that a father should be tended to. I'm working. Don't bother me. I'm working. So rugby has technically become work now. Fantastic. And brilliant to see. I love to see Neil Cronin. Like he came back from, like, there's a story, Neil Cronin, for anybody who's wondering, like the guy was a teacher like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever. He was just teaching. Good rugby player. Sean Cronin's his brother, the hooker for Leinster. And he's just teaching. And out of nowhere, Johan van Graan just gave him a start. He just got, come on, man, I'll give you a contract. Give it a crack. And like, he's not out, but he's no spring chicken. Like, but just, I love that. Just gave him a crack, scored at the weekend. And he came back from a big, long injury, like a bastard of an injury. But he came back, scored at the weekend. Now, albeit it was from a meter out. And he did dive. There was absolutely no need in the dive, but I liked it. He made the most out of it. That kind of way. It was lovely to see it. And, but Jesus Christ, there's some lads, they never turn it off. Like the likes of Earlsey, you know what I mean? They never turns it off. But Calvin Nash, there's a boy. So Munster were playing Exeter at the weekend. I should really have introed that correctly. Like, so we're going to go through the province. And don't worry, I'll mix it up every week. I'm just going to start with how I literally wrote it down. And so I don't get people going, I don't know, start with Munster. I'm not. And I know, yes, there is a Munster cap. Anybody watching the video, I just don't own any other provinces' hats. But if anybody wants to send me some, feel free. Go over, if you want to support in the Patreon by sending me a hat, no problem at all. The Patreon link is in the show notes. You can contact me through that or wherever you do, usually follow me through or whatever. I'll get more, what would you call it? Politically aligned in that I'll have all the provinces there eventually. But this is the podcast studio. It is what it is. But Calvin Nash, that boy has some engine under him. It's minuscule sometimes when you're seeing the speed that these lads can cover, because you're kind of going, yeah. Sure, look, I mean, he caught your man on the sides. He actually bucked out of a few tackles, and still, because that in itself, not just energy-wise, but momentum-wise, you get driven backwards, even a millimeter, or just stopped, a little bit. You literally have to start all over again in a tenth of a second while throwing your body forward to keep the momentum going. And I think he bagged 2 at the weekend. And I know it was against Exeter, who are all over the map, and they're shit hot, like Exeter are class. But again, for me, he stood out. I'm delighted for Rory Scandal too, blasting in over. But there's Jesus Christ too, the size of that Keenan Knox lad. You've seen shoulders, fuck, you could play handball off his back. He might have run and Salanoa as well. I don't know if he has. I don't know if he's played for America. He might get him Irish qualified yet, but I know they nipped him off of Leinster, who brought him over from Hawaii. I think there was a bit of nose out of job. Listen, the guy just mightn't have liked the cut of it. Like maybe he was more he wanted to live out in the fields of Kilkee or by the lake or whatever. Who knows? Maybe the man just wanted a bit less urban environment. Not sure. But 2 units. Can you imagine feeding them 2? Brilliant to see it. Great. Keenan Knox, I think he's here since he's about 16. They nabbed him when he was young, so he'll be Irish qualified fairly soon. But the brute strength out of that young fella. Woo. Dan Goggin. Not sure it was Dan on a gap year or whatever, but if anybody saw the game, he had Scooter back in the UK. We're talking 1995. Like back when whole touring teams used to, which we did as children, we'd bleach our whole head. It's kind of a barbarians thing from like the mid 90s. So every schools team or every club team underage that went touring, you'd all bleach your hair. Looks like Dan. Dan was either in Ibiza or just thought it'd be good crack. I mean, he's a fine head of hair. And I can't say much when it comes to my hair is absolutely ridiculous. But then again, I'm a comedian. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure about the highlights or the bleaching. I'm not sure which they are. I'm just not sure about it. He got a yellow card for slapping the ball down, but that was neither here nor there. It's more so to do with the hair. I just like to discuss the hair more than anything else. I'm not giving out about it. I'm just wondering, is it necessary? There was a couple of other lads did their hair in yellow as well. I think somebody for Ulster, I think, did it as well. Not sure about it. Moving swiftly along, Leinster. So Munster actually won that one. Munster won that one. I think it was a close enough run thing overall, but I think Munster had the better of them throughout. But mother of Jesus Christ, Leinster against Quins, even though it was 40-21 in the finish, but at the same time, Leinster looked unreal. They always just look unreal. Johnny Sexton looking as sharp as could be, scoring tries and everything. Like, do you know what I mean? He's unreal. But then I suppose you see he's had a nice rest. He's had a nice rest, and you could be guaranteed a fella like him was inside in all sorts of freezing chambers, and he is definitely like looking after himself, because big set of guns on him again coming back. I mean, fuck it. Let him stay going. I mean, he's only fucking 45 or whatever. So, I mean, let him stay going. Whatever he wants to do. Jesus, though. Impressive, to say the least. The kids that I saw, I hosted an event a couple of weeks ago up in Dublin. I saw, what's the chap? Byrne. He's not one of the Byrne brothers. Adam Byrne. Is it Adam Byrne? Adam Byrne. Gorgeous. But my God, you forget every so often. You're like, is he that big? Like, yeah, and he's a winger. He would have been considered a monster of a second row in the 80s. Like 15 stone of lean muscle, like possibly even 16 stone of lean muscle. Huge man. And that's just one. He wouldn't even be in Europe, he wouldn't be the starter. He wouldn't be a starter. So Jesus Christ, it's impressive to see it. Like, they just did it again. As Sheehan lad, he's a hooker. He's a serious bit of stuff. I don't know if he's any relation to Frankie from back in the day. It would probably break Frankie's heart if he was, but I doubt it. I'm not sure where he's from, but he is a serious bit of stuff. He really is. Big Dev still on the go. Huh? I was delighted when you see him, because at first I was watching and I was going, is that Big Dev? Because he seems to develop his game now where he doesn't seem to look as tall running around the place. He's kind of running around at about 5.5 foot tall, which is quite a technique. You see sometimes tall lads do it for photographs just to be sound to everybody else. But like, he's like 7'2" or something. I met him once briefly in a comedy club. And I say met him, like I just kind of gave him a nod. And the host hadn't spotted him. None of the other acts had spotted him. How? I don't know. But like, he had done an amazing job. But the giveaway sign, because you see out of perspective down a room, Dev Toner, you may think he's closer to you than he actually is. You know what I mean? He's that big of a man. And I looked down and I saw him, and he just looked at me and for a split, he was like, he gave me there was just a glint in his eye that said, please, man, I'm just out for the night. Like, I mean, there's so many things you could have a go at me about. Like, but pure respect for the man. Just give him a little wink. Nobody else really copped it, or if they did, they just thought I had something in my eye. But the thing that stood out to me most was with the perspective of looking at him, you could say, okay, I think he's closer to me than he actually is, which is something Tony Buckley always looked, because he's so in proportion, Hulk standards. But when you looked at the pint in Dev's hand, because he's a pint in his hand, and it looked like, it genuinely, I swear in my life, it looked like, the mini, like the half pint glasses that are shaped like a pint glass, not just a straight. It actually, oh my sweet, that's what it looked like in his hand. It genuinely, I mean, I could joke and say, well, it looked like a fucking shot glass. It didn't. Imagine your hand being big enough to make a pint glass look half the size of it. If it's like in every direction, look at your hand right now. Every direction, fingers, everything, twice the size, length, width, palm size, spread it out 2 sizes of that. And that's what you're talking about with Dev's hands. Anybody listen to the episode of Buckshot with Dennis Leamy, and he confirmed that. He went, and Dennis Leamy is famed for his paws. He's famed for having just abnormally big hands for a 6-foot man. But he said it, he goes, as soon as I shake hands with Devin Toler, he says, that's it. He says, I just emasculated immediately. So it's fucking class to see somebody as cool as Dev still on the go. I love it. I love it when you just see a guy who's just as cool as he is, and listen to him chat, and his missus online too. Like, she's hilarious. When she was putting up pictures about the first time their baby was, she was pregnant, and she put up like this black and white picture from like, I don't know, orphanage in Russia or something. And it was just this giant child with legs hanging out of the cot. Just like, this is what I have to look forward to. Good God. Yep, pretty much. It's highly unlikely it's going to be short. And Ulster, they absolutely pulled the trousers down of Saracens. But in all fairness, I mean, it wasn't, it was the youngsters they played up against, but it was in the most English setting. It was like right in the city, being overlooked by the BBC Tower. And it looked like a cricket ground. It looked it looked more like, I don't know, like a pitch that was kind of just a recreational pitch owned by a company. This towering big building over it, like, in only tents all the way around, all marquees, and everybody in pink shirts. Everybody's like pink and baby blue or white. So English, and even the commentary, like the commentary lads kept on talking, kept on just being, oh, well, it's just lovely. It's really nice to be here. Meanwhile, Ulster are baiting the bollocks off them. Like, they won 33-3. Like, that's a bollocks baiting in anybody's book. And it's just lovely. It was lovely. I'm not sure about the yellow jerseys. I'm not a fan. Ulster, red, white, black. Come on. I'm not sure. I know everybody's going to change it up, and people are giving out about the Munster jersey as well this year. But the yellow jersey for me is pure Claremont. Like, I can't be looking at it. Doesn't do it for me whatsoever. I think Munster had a fucking hyper yellow yoke a couple of years ago, and it's like, what is this thing? There's a Toomey lad though. Is it Timony? I beg your pardon. It was, Timony. Jesus, he has put on some size. He's playing number 8 for Ulster. Christ, he's a big boy. He is a big boy. Again, some lads, I suppose, struggle, the real tall lads, but the back rowers, they tend to be tanks, and the weight goes on him handy enough. Like, but he has put on some size. Like, you could see it. You could see it not just physically in the jersey busting off his back, but when he clatters into lads, and you can, when the camera is around the other side on the back of the defensive line, and he hits somebody, and all of a sudden they just flex. Like, he's, you see a horror movies when the door just kind of nearly bends with somebody banging on it. That's the same thing when that fella's, because Ireland now have a couple of decent lads coming through who are all going to be chomping for that bit, that CJ Standard jersey. They're all going to be looking for it. Gavin Coombs, there's, who was Prendergast, I think, with Connacht. So all a couple of big boys. I don't know who was playing. I can't remember who was playing number 8 at the weekend. It wasn't Ruddock. I think he was at 7. I can't remember who was playing number 8 for Leinster at the weekend, but we breed big number eights, even though I know CJ standard. But we've a couple of units coming through that will work absolutely grand. It was Craig Gilroy had his hair bleached as well. He must have been on holidays with Dan Goggin, was he? I just a throwback. You haven't seen lads with like bleached hair in so long. It's just odd that you wouldn't, let's just shave a mohawk, or, just odd that you'd see two lads on the one weekend. Maybe they were away on holidays. Anybody knows, put it right in the comments, please, if you know if the two boys were away on holidays together. It'd be great to find out. But yeah, absolute annihilation over in Saracens. So, like, it looks good. I know you can't read much into it, but it looks good for the season going forward when you see them, boys. But then you preface that also at the top because the same thing could happen like it happened to Connacht. Now, Connacht looked all over the fucking map, like, and it was annoying because we all want to see Connacht do well, and we had so many good players there. But they got their trousers taken off, folded over, left on the end of the bed, and yeah, just had a hurleys put across their arse for the entire time. 47-14, and that's even being kind. That was against London Irish, and it wasn't pretty. It was, I mean, Jesus Christ. There was a few guys, because you've the likes of Tom Daly there, who I think is shit hot in the centre, and your man, like I said, Prendergast, he looked the part, a bit loosey goosey. If they could get their general skills down, it was almost like they didn't. Again, it's pre-season. I know it's hard. It's hard to give out about it, but you got no sense of what they were trying to do. No sense of what they were about. In a sense, are we going to sling this ball? Like, you go back to when they won, as it Pro 12 or Pro 14. You knew what they were about. Move it fast, like Japan. Move it fast. Immaculate hands, immaculate pass and catch, or catch, pass, and whatever way you want to say it. It was just immaculate. And I didn't see it. They were dropping stuff and things you just don't expect from a pro side. Yet individually, they look shit hot. But just linking up as a team, maybe it's a result of, I don't know, lockdown or whatever. I can't really be. I mean, I know they got some players to come back and stuff like Bundy and things like that, but they just looked seriously disjointed. Now, in saying that, there was a strong enough side from Irish out. Sean O'Brien, I think he played nearly the full 80. No scrum cap. Nah, not needed. Made a savage burst there too, like beautiful offload, just showing the out skills of old. As a weird thing, like, you see a unit like Sean O'Brien running, you're like, is he going quickly or... But he's going quickly for a fella in like the 60th minute or whatever it was. Built like him at his age, who's taken that many injuries. And then giving a beautiful offload, like, he's smashing lads, and incredible to see. It'd be very interesting to see if, somebody like, the Irish setup are going, could he still do a job, I wonder? But then, again, we're not short on back rows in Ireland at the minute, but it was class to see it. It was like, you got a sense from the crowd. They were like, we still love to see Sean O'Brien have a rip. Like, I don't know if you watched it, but the commentators on the Ulster or the Connacht Irish match, Jesus Christ, very strange. Kept talking over each other. It was really weird. There was one guy, I don't know, it was like he was doing it, and he scored a try. It was very odd. It was almost like he was doing commentary from, next door to his kid's bedroom or something. They didn't want to wake somebody up. And he started explaining the rules of each decision and stuff like that. Because, of course, in rugby, when you kick from a penalty from hand and it goes out, it's your throw-in. It was almost like the guy, when a kid wants to show you all the things it's just learned that day. He seemed like a nice fella, but I would wager that rugby wasn't his first sport. But it made for a weird one because the two lads then started just talking over each other. I was quite entertained by how in sync. Not sure if that's actually a word, but yes, we hope for better things. But I mean, Irish have lads like your man Cock and the Singer. Oh, imagine that coming down the line at you. Jesus Christ, you're just gonna go for 1 foot. You're at not normal sized humans are at not with somebody like him. It's just go for a foot, grab a foot, hang on for dear life. I mean, wrap your legs around it and everything you can do, like a tree trunk. Just grab onto a foot. And I don't mean nothing higher than an ankle. Don't be looking for a shin, a knee, a calf, or anything. Thighs, nothing. Nothing above like 3 inches above the ankle. That's where you live when. And I know you got to try and stop just let somebody else come in when you've got to chop and try and stop the offload or whatever. But you ain't doing it all at the one, unless you're a monster yourself, like, I don't know, Gavin Coombs or something. But even still, just even from the side, when you're looking at Cock of the Singer, he's like, what? You're like 4 foot deep, man. And you can run like that. It's good looking tanks. Good looking tanks. That was, I mean, the Prem as well had it had some preseason stuff. Hard to call it really. I mean, of course, Quins, they were thereabouts in bits and pieces with Leinster, but you're never going to see your full hand. Like, you're never going to see your full hand. So Premiership wise, we'll talk a bit more on it when it rolls around next week. I think it's this weekend, actually. I think it rolls around, but we'll talk more on it. I haven't looked enough into it, but I'll watch it as the games unfold. I know a fair bit about it, but you know what I mean. It's its own animal. We'll only be skimming around it. Realistically, it's going to be more so about the provinces and what happens in Europe and everything else. Very, very exciting times to have it back. We have, of course, the URC is starting, and it's going to be played on RTE. The URC, the United Rugby Championship, they're calling it, which kind of feels, a bit superhero-ish, but we'll go with it. There's a great picture too, like, because it just lets you know how big Chris Farrell is, because they have like 4 lads from, I think they have Tom Daly, they have Gary Ringrose, they have Chris Farrell, and I'm not sure who that chap is. I should know who he is. Ulster player, but they've Chris Farrell way pushed back at the back. Again, another man, when you meet him, you're like, oh my God, you've got a leg growing out of your shoulders for a neck. Literally, his neck, when you see his neck is as big as his legs. He is a monster. But the URC, essentially what we've had the last couple of years, is the Pro 14, which was the Pro 12, which makes sense. It's all the usual suspects, like everybody who is in England, essentially, in the 6, so it's Scotland, Italy, Wales, and Ireland. This time around, we have gone to 16 teams. There's a bunch of lads coming in. So who's coming in? Like I said, there's Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and Italy, plus the top lads, not just the pure pants that was coming, not to be mean to them, but the Kings and the Cheetahs were not, for the most part. They might throw up an out surprise or whatever, but because South Africa, of course, is on a direct median line, I suppose, or whatever you call it, time zone line, you can play at this, that's really what it's about. It's about telly times. So they were always finding it a bit tricky when they go play in the Super Leagues down in Southern Hemisphere with Australia and New Zealand. They're going to do their own thing. Argentina, I think, are talking about sending up the Jaguares. I don't know if they're going to do it this year round, but again, it makes sense kind of for them, because they, unfortunately, bizarrely, they're the only shit hot team. I should just say shit hot team and not shit hot team, which is kind of an oxymoron. You like that for a word? They're just being left to do their own thing, essentially. But you look at, I mean, New Zealand are even happy to play just New Zealand teams, because they're just, they're going to be class regards. But who's joining them this year? The best teams out of South Africa are joining what was the Pro 14. And it's going to be the Cecil Sharks, which I think would have been the Natal Sharks back in the day. It's like an actual shark man running with a rugby ball. Percy Montgomery played for him before. I think Andy Good might have played for him as well. They love a good. I mean, they say we're selling out when we give stadium names sponsors up front, because 3 have just started sponsoring the Olympia now, so it's going to be the 3 Olympia Theatre. Well, I know Thomond, Toyota always wanted. Toyota were pushing to have called Toyota Park back in the day. Yes, they do have Independent Park, or Cork Seminar Park down in Cork, but Thomond Park were like, that's grand, we'll go get Nissan, so it's sponsors instead. They were like, oh no, that's fine. But it's Bank of Ireland now anyways. Bank of Ireland are sponsoring, but they love a good sponsor. in South Africa. They don't give a shit. Give us all the money you want. We'll literally, that's the hilarious thing about the Japanese leagues. Like, Toshiba sunflowers. How am I supposed to take this seriously? But they call themselves now the Cell C Sharks. Like, that is pretty funny. Like, cell as in prison cell, C as in the letter C, and Sharks. I think Munster play them up first, but next weekend. And Seashells Sharks. Lads, could you have gotten somebody else? The DHL Stormers, the Emirates Lions, and the Vodacom Bulls, who you previously known as the Blue Bulls, which, I mean, it's not a bad choice to drop the blue before Bulls, because it's so easy to say Blue Balls, you know, and I'll be calling them Blue Balls throughout the season of this show. I just will. So it'll be an interesting one. And the way it was done before was 2 conferences when it was Pro 14. This is not dull. It's going to be all 16 teams down in one league. Simple as that. Playoff, I think they play 18 regular games, which is down from 21 games, which it was last year. So it's going to be 18 games, and essentially the last 8 then down into quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. Just like a normal league. That's the way it's going to be done. So, and in the Irish pool, obviously, there's the 4 provinces. The Welsh pool will be Dragons, Cardiff, and Ospreys, and Scarlets. South Africa pool with the Sharks, Stormers, Lions, and Bulls. And Italian and Scottish pool get 2 each. So it's Benetton, Zebre, Edinburgh, and Glasgow. So I think it'll spice it up a bit. And being lesser games too means you're probably going to get, and they're not going to play it during international windows, which is class. Which means you're going to see. I mean, will it be great for bringing lads through? I don't know, but I think it'll be good for putting arses on seats, because they'll put more of the big names playing, you know, the Interpros and stuff like that. It's a good thing. And on top of that, it's on terrestrial. So I'm sure it'll be on terrestrial to whoever's, I'm hoping it is. Whoever, you know, is watching abroad. I hope it is. I think it's going to be on mostly terrestrial when I looked it up, which is absolutely class. Brilliant. Back to the old schools. Bring back, Fred Cogley isn't with us anymore. But you remember old Fred Cogley? It used to be great. That's about the roundup. That's it. Normally, we're going to have a guest jump in and talk about a bit more expertise. I will get him to explain, the expert, to explain the new changes in the rules. Up next weekend, I think the only 2 provinces. I think Munster played the Seychelles Sharks. That's it. The Seychelles Sharks. That's it for the season. The Seychelles Sharks. And Leinster played Blue Balls. So they played the Vodacom Bulls, the Blue Balls. Leinster are going to be playing them up next weekend. Be interesting to see what you run with your brung. I'm guessing not all the international will be back, especially the lads that went on the Lions tours and stuff like that. I'm guessing they won't all be back, but Ulster and Connacht, I think, play the following week. Clatter of the week. Now go have a look at this. I think it's hard to find it. You'll find it on Twitter if you look for it, but it was literally second. It was inside minute 1. It was like 5 seconds in, maybe 6. It was the kickoff, the drop off right at the beginning from the kickoff. And Bowden Barrett dropped it off, which, you know, well, actually, I'll quickly swing around some of the international stuff as well, but it is a fucking beautiful. Talk about laying down a marker. How hungry, like, just the hunger that these fellas are showing. Like, it's New Zealand, but of course it is, because lo and behold, Barrett has dropped this week for, you know, Jamie McKenzie, just to keep him on his toes, you know. But it was Laulala is your man's name. He was number 3. Oh my Jesus Christ Almighty, Nipo Laulala. He hit the number. He's number 6. He's been there forever. Pablo Matera. Oh Jesus Christ. Just go have a look at it. And it's legal. It was deemed legal. Like, I mean, in other parts of the world, I'd say they would have went, let's have another look at that there now, because it's up above the nipple line, I think. But talk about laying down a marker. Like, welcome to the fucking game. And that fella's he's no slouch. He's 6. He's got to be 18 stone. Handy 18 stone. Like, big bastard. And fucking melts him with a tackle. Like, Normally the big boys, big old tanks, like, the front rowers, they can throw their weight into a thing and it'll be a nice old, it's normally back rowers that hit people like that, like cut them like a chainsaw in half. Like a swinging sledgehammer, just cut him in half. Normally the big boys just kind of mill their weight into you. He absolutely, oh Lord, melted him with a tackle. Beautiful to see. It's absolutely gorgeous to see. And just on that note, the internationals from the weekend, it has to be mentioned. Obviously, New Zealand played Argentina. Scandalous carry on. 39-0, like. And this is Argentina. Like I said, they're the only good South African team in South Africa. And they absolutely got, Jesus Christ, like, 39-0. Not a punch thrown. That'll tell you. Barrett classed as being number 2, number 3, which is ridiculous. I mean, when you think about it, imagine Bowden Barrett. Any international team in the world would cut their toes off just to get their hands on him. Like, any team in the world. And he's like, hey, sorry, bro, you're number 3. It's not hard feelings, you. You're like, fucking few hard feelings, all right, because clearly he was up for it at the weekend, pulling off stuff, and you're going like, just Jesus, Mary and Joseph, you're just sidestepping lads, just wiggling your hips out, handing off lads, and just the boldness, like it's like something you'd see at training, just the boldness to keep going, and then just go have a look at the offload from the weekend if you wonder what I'm talking about. It is, and then offload, like it's like actually put a spin on it, like just as he's falling, puts a spin on it, swings it out like 15 meters. Try. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Especially when you're, Moanga, Richie Moanga is classed these days as number 1 to him. Like, and there's 3 Barrett brothers. Them boys, apparently they spent 5 or 6 months in, I don't know, was it Mayo or someplace? Because their father was into farming and he did some farming swap thing and brought the boys with him. With the name like Barrett, they technically possibly could have played for Ireland. Can you imagine that? Oh, Lord save us. But you've 3 lads playing in vastly different, they're about vastly different roles, like. But apparently they all turned up to school with no shoes on. Because, I can brew, why do you need shoes? You're like, well, it's cold here and it's wet and there's loads of sharp stones. But these lads, they'll tell you, like, just hard as nails, like. And it was an absolute drubbing. But the game of the weekend really was Australia, South Africa. What a humdinger. Absolute humdinger. Woo! Now that was a game. And Quade Cooper, after his time in the darkness, just comes back like he'd never been away. Just look at, if you're new to rugby or whatever, you're going, what's this Quade Cooper about? He's actually a Kiwi. But very odd, that he, like, that guy could be playing for New Zealand, but just, the head got away from him for a few years, fell out with a few people. Just watch some highlights. The things that man can do don't look human. Like, you're just going, that's CGI. That's CGI. The robotic shit he can do with sidesteps. Even there's a one there where he's just on a training pitch. He's got an American football and it looks like he's going to throw it for all the world, like overarm, like you would with an American football. There's a guy maybe easily 40 meters away running across the pitch. And he's just throwing, and then his hands just softly comes down and he puts this 40-meter spiral pass out the back, around his back. Jesus Christ. And he kicks 8 from 8. First game back in, I don't know how many, was it 2-3 years? He was in the cold. Kicks 8 from 8 against the world champions who just beat the Lions. 8 from 8. And with the clock in red, point or two down, he gets a penalty, maybe 40 meters out, off to the right. And you could see him, he just looked and he went, that's mine. Give me the ball. Put it down. You're like, just walking around with 2 conkers. Absolute. The nuts to just not have capitulated through that whole game. Like, no nerves shown. You're just going, and then he gives an aftermatch interview and you're like, it wasn't even cocky. It was just like, basically just being class, just going, rugby's not that important, lads. And once you get that into your head, everything else falls into place. You're like, you're making that sound real easy there, Quaid, with your 8-pack. You know, I mean, I could say the same thing and even believe the same thing, but I'm sure as shit not on the 80th minute going to beat South Africa with a kick to clinch the, clutch kick to clinch the match. It's a bit more to it than that, son. You've been a bit more to it than that. But yeah, moment of the weekend, clatter of the weekend was Lalala on Matera. Moment of the weekend was the spuds on that lad. Oh, absolute to do it, like to pull that off. Amazing stuff. And we will be back. Like I said, I'll be back next week with early next week, probably Tuesday, I would imagine next week with, a full proper preview, guest and all for the coming weekend and the kick of the URC. Maybe looking forward a little bit to the international season where we have a couple of in the November windows where I think Ireland are playing in Las Vegas. Nice. I will have a look at that. That has been all for the show. You're all very welcome. Thank you so much for joining me through the pre-season episode of Cracked Rugby. I've been Tom O'Mahony. Thank you very much. Hit subscribe, write, review, share, tell everybody about it. It's the newest kid on the block. I'm going to have to elbow my way in between all these seriously journo people for a bit of crack when it comes to rugby. Good looking, thanks.